Hello. I got everything here? I think so. Looks good to me. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is and whatever part of the world you are in. I am Tad. I'm here in California. It is 1 o'clock a.m. California time, which, as everybody knows, is a bit different than the rest of the world's time because we live in California. You can check out, but you can never leave. But anyway, good to see you all. Well, however many of you have drifted in so far, and a pleasure to be here with you. Let me direct that out of my eyes a little bit. I am going to be here until about 2 o'clock. Going to be reading more from Martian Chronicles tonight. Happy New Year! I almost forgot to say that. Happy New Year to everybody, except for those who don't celebrate their New Year at this time of the year. I realize there are other New Years, Jewish New Year, Chinese New Year, but Gregorian New Year, I think, is that right? Gregorian? Yeah, I believe so. Gregorian New Year just started, and we had a very low-key but pleasant one. We sort of had our second Christmas because our two male offspring could not make it for Christmas Day. For a variety of reasons having to do with travel and work. So we had a follow-up ceremony, or not ceremony, a holiday, whatever you want to call it, festivity on New Year's where they opened their presents and we did stuff like that. And watched a movie and hung out and all of that stuff. So that was all good. What else is there to relate? Just the usual. Things have been boring lately, at least boring in terms of me being able to have anything to relate on air. Been working on Splintered Sun, moving my way through various things, trying various things, as I think I've talked about at some length. What else? God, not really much. Been taking care of dogs and cats. Been hanging out with my beloved. And that's always nice. One of the nice things about what we do for a living is both Deb and I work from home. And we learned a long time ago, actually, when we first lived together and then when we first moved, well, back to California for me. And we were actually sharing a single office at that point. And we always got along very well. We're good at leaving each other alone, which is absolutely crucial for, creative types. You have to have some alone time. It's nice to know there's another person there who you can ask something if you have to, or you can deal with, family business type stuff, that, blah, 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 we have to do the groceries today or whatever. But otherwise can leave each other alone as well, which is, is pretty much super important for anybody who's doing brain work. And both Deb and I spend a lot of the day doing brain work of one kind or another. So I've always appreciated that. It's one of the many things I appreciate about my beloved, but that certainly is one of them, is that we've always been able to share a house and workspace and don't interfere with each other, let each other get on with stuff. So if you can arrange that with your partner, I recommend it. So what else is there? There's really not a whole lot to say. I've just been, as I said, it feels like I've been spending the whole week dealing with animals. Poor Walter the Chihuahua. He's old, and he's also epileptic, and he's on all kinds of phenobarbital and stuff, and he's very wobbly, and so he's constantly like falling off the bed. And not only that, but it's like wherever you put down something on the floor, like a dog bed for him to fall onto, he deliberately goes and falls off somewhere else, which is maddening. So you're trying to just think or work or do something sitting on the bed, lying down on the bed or whatever, and all of a sudden you see Walter kind of tottering along the edge, and you're going, no, Walter, wait, no, and just as you reach out for him, he just goes, just falls over the edge. Oh, it's heartbreaking. But on the other hand, it's amazing. I mean, he doesn't hurt himself somehow, or at least he never shows anything. I mean, I guess it's because he's so small and light. But God bless it, just so difficult. And you keep wanting to catch him in midair like Superman, but it's hard. It's hard. It's exhausting. And even when he's within reach, I can usually catch him, as he tumbles off the bed. But it's painful, emotionally, but also just physically, to like catch even a small dog who's like falling off, and you're stretching out your arm as far as you can and trying to catch him without harming him. Anyway, didn't mean to get off into a long subject about that. Anybody who's had a very old dog or an old cat or whatever knows about these things. But he seems to, he seems to enjoy his life most of the time. He's happy to sleep with his little warm puppy thing that I got him. That seems to be working for him. And it has a little heartbeat, which is, obviously just a little electronic thing going tick, 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 like that. And heat, of course, which is his main thing. So he spends the whole day nestled with that fluffy stuffed puppy with the interior. Here's the interior, by the way. This is the heart. This is the beating heart of the puppy, and it's currently charging. I don't know if I could even get it to start making its noise. Who cares? It's not important. But anyway, so this is it. Yes, so when it's finished charging, it'll go back inside the stuffed puppy. What else? So the holidays are roughly over. I mean, not over, obviously. There's holidays all year, and there's holidays in January, and there's holidays in February, and but the main thing, the Thanksgiving to, well, Halloween really now it's spread. Halloween to January 1st, that whole process, which every year anybody who knows me and has been following me in these readings for a while knows I kind of dread it. I mean, I have a lot of deep emotional connection with the holidays from childhood and stuff. So there's still a lot of warm feelings about it, but I also, as an adult, it just stresses me out. So I am not sad to be done with the holidays, despite the fact that I had a lovely holiday, got to spend most of it with various family members. And I'm talking about the whole holiday season, and be in contact with friends and all that stuff. And, don't get me wrong. I am definitely a person who understands how fortunate he is and how lucky I am to have so many wonderful people in my life. Not just my close family, but, my online friends and everything. And the holidays is a time to celebrate things like that. So don't get me wrong. I appreciate it, but I'm old and I'm cranky, and I'm tired of all the things that go with it, all the presenting and the socializing and all of that, and the head colds, of course, that you get because you're out bustling around and hanging out with lots of other people. So I've spent a month with my nose streaming and trying to keep straight who I have presents for and who I don't and all that, and I'm perfectly happy to be done with it. So I remember my parents talking about this, my mom, when we hit that age, that stretch where the kids grow up but they haven't had kids of their own, and we had the holidays were very laid back, very non-stressful. They were very Christmas Day, we'd go over to my folks' house, but nobody would show up until like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. The presents were secondary in importance because we were all grown-ups at that point. Excuse me. And I remember talking to my mom about it once and saying, do you miss that side of the holidays, and especially Christmas, when you have kids and they're so excited? And she said, well, yeah, a little bit. On the other hand, it's much, much more restful now. And then, of course, we, meaning her kids, my 2 brothers and I, went into our own phase of having our kids. And, of course, those of you who have parented know, the whole holiday thing comes rushing back, and all of a sudden it's like, have to get the latest toy. Oh my God, do we have stuff to put in the stockings? Have to get the kids to bed so Santa can sneak the presents in. Have to find all the Christmas tree decorations, including the ones that kids made at school that are like broken probably because they were made out of unfired clay, etc. but the whole thing comes back. And so we had about 10 years or so of that with all the cousins and the aunts and uncles, of which I was now one, an aunt and an uncle, well, an uncle. And now that's kind of fading out again, and none of the next generation have reproduced yet. So things are mellow. Things are mellow. And we are through the holidays, and I'm saying that like a mantra because all I want to do is just hunker down and work and spend the next few months getting the book whipped into shape and getting my office finally whipped into shape and getting those cats whipped into shape, although I don't know if that'll ever come to pass. But they're not my cats. They were very, very, they have no manners. They were badly raised. No, that's not true. They're perfectly nice cats. They're lovely cats, actually. But I'm teasing my daughter because I think she just went upstairs. And anything else? No, not really much to talk about. Just happy to be on what I consider the downhill slide of the year, or of the beginning of the new year, but the downhill slide into spring. Perfectly happy. Don't have any holidays I have to think about for a while. Yeah, that's that. So let me just check in quickly and see who might have popped in to say hello. And who have we got here? We have got, no, that's not going to tell me. Of course not. That would be too easy. Okay, I see Ivan. Hello, buddy. Good to see you. I see Maria Jose. I see Ty Tyson. Hello, Ty. Sandra. Good to see you. Ray Weatherford. Hello, Ray. Petra. Hello, hello. Ilva, my darling. Good to see you. Whoops. And of course it went away again. Isaac is here. Rick Mole. Chris is here. Christian. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Kevin Wotasiak. That's a new name. I hope I'm at least getting close to it. Let me know. And Kevin just came to say greetings from Poland and that I am the favorite writer ever. Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for joining us. A real pleasure to have you. Even if you don't say complimentary things, folks, you are very welcome. But when you say complimentary things, obviously you are at least as welcome, if that made sense. Anyway, who else is here? Nicole, Carol, Christy Sanders, Mark Redmond checking in from Yorkshire, Penny. Hello, Penny. And who else did I lose there? Andrew Kapunkt. Now, punkt means point. Kapunkt, is that an actual name, and am I pronouncing it correctly, or is that an online name? Not that it matters. I mean, we all have multiple identities. Anyway, Ivan says Walter just falls on purpose to reassure himself that you are there for him. It's probably true, although he is largely blind and deaf at this point. So that might be the only way he can be absolutely certain is when I pick him up and carry him away somewhere to put him somewhere safe. And Ben, either Mayer or Maher, and you can pronounce it however you want, says G'day from us. So G'day to you too, Ben. G'day, Ben. Cheers, right, mate. And so with that, and having gotten through all of that stuff and babbled on for some length of time about my aversion to the holidays, I'm not really against the holidays. I'm just against the responsibility of the holidays. As I told you, I really actually like the holidays in many ways, and I did finally get a tree this year again and got it set up, and we put lights on it. And a little small tree, but it was still a tree. I could still do my ritual of listening to Christmas music with the lights out except for the tree. I even have a picture, which if I remember at some point I will post on one of my Facebook things, since I complained about how I had missed that last year. So don't want to give you the wrong idea. I am not anti-holiday. I am anti all the things that go with the holiday. I love Christmas itself and the idea of a season of kindness. I love that. Kindness is my religion. I enjoy giving people presents, and to be honest, I like getting presents. I don't make lists for myself because I'd rather just see what people come up with, and I'm almost always more than happy with what I get. You know, I get cool things from cool friends and cool family members, and that's grand. I love that, and I love giving people things that seem like they'll enjoy them. I enjoy the getting together with family and friends too very much. I enjoy all that stuff. It's just the constant things that have to be kept track of that just gets to be a bit much after a while. But I hope you all had very good holidays. If you, whatever you happen to celebrate or not celebrate, you can have a good holiday without celebrating anything too. Okay, so with that all said, let me get to the book, since I've now wasted a quarter of my reading time. So we are still, of course, reading the Martian Chronicles, and we are about to read a story called The Martian, which has particular significance for me, which I will probably explain at the end of the time if we have enough time. If not, I will explain as I go if I see that we're going to run out of time. But first, there's a little short snippet here, as I have mentioned many times, these little interstitial snippets that have been added by Bradbury to turn it into a kind of more coherent work instead of just a collection of different short stories. And the first one is August 2036, and it is called The Old Ones. And what more natural than that, at last, the old people come to Mars, following in the trail left by the loud frontiersmen, the aromatic sophisticates, and the professional travelers and romantic lecturers in search of new grist. And so the dry and crackling people, the people who spent their time listening to their hearts and feeling their pulses and spooning syrups into their wry mouths, these people, who once had taken chair cars to California in November and third-class steamers to Italy in April, the dried apricot people, the mummy people, came at last to Mars. September 2036, The Martian. Start that one again. September 2036, The Martian. The blue mountains lifted into the rain, and the rain fell down into the long canals, and old Lafarge and his wife came out of their house to watch. "First rain this season," Lafarge pointed out. "It's good," said his wife. "Very welcome." They shut the door. Inside, they warmed their hands at a fire. They shivered. In the distance, through the window, they saw rain gleaming on the sides of the rocket which had brought them from Earth. "There's only one thing," said Lafarge, looking at his hands. "What's that?" asked his wife. "I wish we could have brought Tom with us." "Oh, now, Leif, I won't start again. I'm sorry. We came here to enjoy our old age in peace, not to think of Tom. He's been dead so long now, we should try to forget him and everything on Earth." "You're right," he said, and turned his hands again to the heat. He gazed into the fire. I won't speak of it any more. It's just that I miss driving out to Greenlawn Park every Sunday to put flowers on his marker. It used to be our only excursion." The blue rain fell gently upon the house. At 9 o'clock they went to bed and lay quietly, hand in hand, he 55, she 60, in the raining darkness. "Anna," he called softly. "Yes," she replied. "Did you hear something?" They both listened to the rain and the wind. "Nothing," she said. "Someone whistling," he said. "No, I didn't hear it. I'm going to get up and see anyhow." He put on his robe and walked through the house to the front door. Hesitating, he pulled the door wide, and rain fell cold upon his face. The wind blew. In the dooryard stood a small figure. Lightning cracked the sky, and a wash of white color illumined the face looking in at old Lafarge there in the doorway. "Who's there?" called Lafarge, trembling. No answer. Who is it? What do you want?" Still not a word. He felt very weak and tired and numb. "Who are you?" he cried. His wife entered behind him and took his arm. "Why are you shouting?" "Small boy's standing in the yard and won't answer me," said the old man, trembling. He looks like Tom." "Come to bed, you're dreaming." "But he's there. See for yourself." He pulled the door wider to let her see. The cold wind blew and the thin rain fell upon the soil, and the figure stood looking at them with distant eyes. The old woman held to the doorway. Go away," she said, waving one hand. "Go away." "Doesn't it look like Tom?" asked the old man. The figure did not move. "I'm afraid," said the old woman. "Lock the door and come to bed. I won't have anything to do with it." She vanished, moaning to herself, into the bedroom. The old man stood with the wind raining coldness on his hands. "Tom," he called softly. "Tom, if that's you, if by some chance it is you, Tom, I'll leave the door unlatched. And if you're cold and want to come in and warm yourself, just come in later and lie by the hearth. There's some fur rugs there." He shut but did not lock the door. His wife felt him return to bed and shuddered. "It's a terrible night. I feel so old," she said, sobbing. "Hush, hush," he gentled her and held her in his arms. "Go to sleep." After a long while, she slept. And then, very quietly, as he listened, he heard the front door open, the rain and wind come in, the door shut. He heard soft footsteps on the hearth and a gentle breathing. "Tom," he said to himself. Lightning struck in the sky and broke the blackness apart. In the morning, the sun was very hot. Mr. Lafarge opened the door into the living room and glanced all about quickly. The hearth rugs were empty. Lafarge sighed. "I'm getting old," he said. He went out to walk to the canal to fetch a bucket. Of clear water to wash in. At the front door, he almost knocked young Tom down, carrying in a bucket already filled to the brim. "Good morning, Father." "Morning, Tom." The old man fell aside. The young boy, barefooted, hurried across the room, set the bucket down, and turned, smiling. "It's a fine day." "Yes, it is," said the old man incredulously. The boy acted as if nothing was unusual. He began to wash his face with the water. The old man moved forward. "Tom, how did you get here? You're alive? Shouldn't I be?" The boy glanced up. "But, Tom, Green Lawn Park, every Sunday, the flowers and..." Lafarge had to sit down. The boy came and stood before him and took his hand. The old man felt of the fingers, warm and firm. "You're really here? It's not a dream? You do want me to be here, don't you?" The boy seemed worried. Yes, Tom." "Then why ask questions? Accept me." "But your mother, the shock..." "Don't worry about her. During the night, I sang to both of you, and you'll accept me more because of it, especially her. I know what the shock is. Wait till she comes, you'll see." He laughed, shaking his head of coppery curled hair. His eyes were very blue and clear. "Good morning, Leif. Tom." Mother came from the bedroom, putting her hair up into a bun. "Isn't it a fine day?" Tom turned to laugh in his father's face. "See?" They ate a very good lunch, all three of them, in the shade behind the house. Mrs. LaForge had found an old bottle of sunflower wine she had put away, and they all had a drink of that. Mr. LaForge had never seen his wife's face so bright. If there was any doubt in her mind about Tom, she didn't voice it. It was a completely natural thing to her, and it was also becoming natural to LaForge himself. While Mother cleared the dishes, LaForge leaned toward his son and said, confidentially, "How old are you now, son?" "Don't you know, Father? 14, of course." "Who are you, really? You can't be Tom, but you are someone. Who?" "Don't." Startled, the boy put his hands to his face. "You can tell me," said the old man. "I'll understand. You're a Martian, aren't you? I've heard tales of the Martians. Nothing definite. Stories about how rare Martians are, and when they come among us, they come as Earthmen. There's something about you. You're Tom, yet you're not." "Why can't you accept me and stop talking?" cried the boy. His hands completely shielded his face. Please don't doubt me." He turned and ran from the table. "Tom, come back!" But the boy ran off along the canal toward the distant town. "Where's Tom going?" asked Anna, returning for more dishes. She looked at her husband's face. "Did you say something to bother him?" "Anna," he said, taking her hand. "Anna, do you remember anything about the Green Lawn Park, a marker, and Tom having pneumonia?" "What are you talking about?" She laughed. "Never mind," he said quietly. In the distance, the dust drifted down after Tom had run along the canal rim. At 5 p.m, with the sunset, Tom returned. He looked doubtfully at his father. "Are you going to ask me anything?" he wanted to know. "No questions," said LaForge. The boy smiled his white smile. "Swell. Where have you been?" "Near the town. I almost didn't come back. I was almost..." The boy sought for a word. "Trapped." "How do you mean, trapped?" "I passed a small tin house by the canal, and I was almost made so I couldn't come back here ever again to see you. I don't know how to explain it to you. There's no way. I can't tell you. Even I don't know. It's strange. I don't want to talk about it." "We won't then. Better wash up, boy. Supper time." The boy ran. Perhaps 10 minutes later, a boat floated down the serene surface of the canal. A tall, lank man with black hair poling it along with leisurely drives of his arms. "Evening, Brother LaForge," he said, pausing at his task. "Evening, Saul. What's the word?" "All kinds of words tonight. You know that fella named Gnomeland who lives down the canal in the tin hut?" LaForge stiffened. "Yes. You know what sort of rascal he was. Rumor had it he left Earth because he killed a man." Saul leaned on his wet pole, gazing at LaForge. "Remember the name of the man he killed?" "Gillings, wasn't it?" "Right, Gillings. Well, about 2 hours ago, Mr. Gnomeland came running to town crying about how he had seen Gillings, alive, here on Mars today, this afternoon. He tried to get the jail to lock him up safe. The jail wouldn't. So Gnomeland went home, and 20 minutes ago, as I get the story, blew his brains out with a gun. I just came from there." Well, said LaForge. "The darndest things happen," said Saul. "Well, good night, LaForge." "Good night." The boat drifted on down the serene canal waters. "Supper's hot," called the old woman. Mr. LaForge sat down to his supper and, knife in hand, looked over at Tom. "Tom," he said, "what did you do this afternoon?" "Nothing," said Tom, his mouth full. "Why?" "Just wanted to know." The old man tucked his napkin in. At 7 that night, the old woman wanted to go to town. "Haven't been there in months," she said. But Tom desisted. "I'm afraid of the town," he said. "The people. I don't want to go there." "Such talk for a grown boy," said Anna. "I won't listen to it. You'll come along. I say so." "Anna, if the boy doesn't want to," started the old man. But there was no arguing. She hustled them into the canal boat, and they floated up the canal under the evening stars, Tom lying on his back, his eyes closed. Asleep or not, there was no telling. The old man looked at him steadily, wondering, "Who is this," he thought, "in need of love as much as we? Who is he, and what is he, that out of loneliness he comes into the alien camp and assumes the voice and face of memory and stands among us, accepted and happy at last? From what mountain, what cave, what small last race of people remaining on this world when the rockets came from Earth?" The old man shook his head. There was no way to know. This, to all purposes, was Tom. The old man looked at the town again and did not like it, but then he returned to thoughts of Tom and Anna again, and he thought to himself, "Perhaps this is wrong to keep Tom but a little while, when nothing can come of it but trouble and sorrow. But how are we to give up the very thing we've wanted, no matter if it stays only a day and is gone, making the emptiness emptier, the dark nights darker, the rainy nights wetter? You might as well force the food from our mouths as take this one from us." And he looked at the boy, slumbering so peacefully at the bottom of the boat. The boy whimpered with some dream. "The people," he murmured in his sleep, changing and changing. The trap." There, boy." Lafarge stroked the boy's soft curls, and Tom ceased. Lafarge helped wife and son from the boat. "Here we are." Anna smiled at all the lights, listening to the music from the drinking houses, the pianos, the phonographs, watching people, arm in arm, striding by in the crowded streets. "I wish I was home," said Tom. "You never talked that way before," said the mother. "You always liked Saturday nights in town." "Stay close to me," whispered Tom. "I don't want to get trapped." Anna overheard. "Stop talking that way. Come along." Lafarge noticed that the boy held his hand. Lafarge squeezed it. "I'll stick with you, Tommy boy." He looked at the throngs coming and going, and it worried him also. We won't stay long." "Nonsense. We'll spend the evening," said Anna. They crossed a street, and 3 drunken men careened into them. There was much confusion, a separation, a wheeling about, and then Lafarge stood, stunned. Tom was gone. "Where is he?" asked Anna irritably. "Him always running off alone any chance he gets." "Tom!" she called. Mr. Lafarge hurried through the crowd, but Tom was gone. "He'll come back. He'll be at the boat when we leave," said Anna, certainly, steering her husband back toward the motion picture theater. There was a sudden commotion in the crowd, and a man and woman rushed by Lafarge. He recognized them, Joe Spaulding and his wife. They were gone before he could speak to them. Looking back anxiously, he purchased the tickets for the theater and allowed his wife to draw him into the unwelcome darkness. Tom was not at the landing at 11 o'clock. Mrs. Lafarge turned very pale. "Now, Mother," said Lafarge, "don't worry. I'll find him. Wait here." "Hurry back." Her voice faded into the ripple of the water. He walked through the night streets, hands in pockets. All about lights were going out one by one. A few people were still leaning out their windows, for the night was warm, even though the sky still held storm clouds from time to time among the stars. As he walked, he recalled the boy's constant references to being trapped, his fear of crowds and cities. There was no sense in it, thought the old man tiredly. Perhaps the boy was gone forever. Perhaps he had never been. Lafarge turned in at a particular alley, watching the numbers. "Hello there, Lafarge." A man sat in his doorway, smoking a pipe. "Hello, Mike." "You and your woman quarrel? You out walking it off?" "No, just walking." "You look like you lost something." "Speaking of lost things," said Mike, "somebody got found this evening. You know Joe Spaulding? You remember his daughter, Lavinia?" "Yes." Lafarge was cold. It all seemed a repeated dream. He knew which words would come next. "Lavinia came home tonight," said Mike, smoking. "You recall she was lost on the Dead Sea bottoms about a month ago? They found what they thought was her body, badly deteriorated, and ever since the Spaulding family's been no good. Joe went around saying she wasn't dead, that wasn't really her body. Guess he was right. Tonight, Lavinia showed up." "Where?" Lafarge felt his breath come swiftly, his heart pounding. "On Main Street. The Spauldings were buying tickets for a show, and there, all of a sudden, in the crowd, was Lavinia. Must have been quite a scene. She didn't know them, first off. They followed her half down a street and spoke to her. Then she remembered." "Did you see her?" "No, but I heard her singing. Remember how she used to sing the Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond? I heard her trilling out for her father a while ago over there in their house. It was good to hear her, such a beautiful girl. A shame, I thought her dead. Now with her back again, it's fine. Here now, you look weak yourself. Better come in for a spot of whiskey." "Thanks, no, Mike." The old man moved away. He heard Mike say good night and did not answer, but fixed his eyes upon the 2-story building where rambling clusters of crimson Martian flowers lay upon the high crystal roof. Around back, above the garden, was a twisted iron balcony, and the windows above were lighted. It was very late, and still he thought to himself, "What will happen to Anna if I don't bring Tom home with me? This second shock, this second death, what will it do to her? Will she remember the first death too, and this dream, and the sudden vanishing? Oh God, I got to find Tom, or what will come of Anna? Poor Anna, waiting there at the landing." He paused and lifted his head. Somewhere above, voices bade other soft voices good night. Doors turned and shut. Lights dimmed, and a gentle singing continued. A moment later, a girl, no more than 18, very lovely, came out upon the balcony. Lafarge called up through the wind that was blowing. The girl turned and looked down. "Who's there?" she cried. "It's me," said the old man, and realizing this reply to be silly and strange, fell silent, his lips working. Should he call out, "Tom, my son, this is your father"? How to speak to her? She would think him quite insane and summon her parents. The girl bent forward in the blowing light. "I know you," she replied softly. "Please go. There's nothing you can do." "You got to come back." It escaped Lafarge before he could prevent it. The moonlit figure above drew into shadow, so there was no identity, only a voice. "I'm not your son anymore," it said. "We should never have come to town. Anna's waiting at the landing." "I'm sorry," said the quiet voice. "But what can I do? I'm happy here. I'm loved, even as you loved me. I am what I am, and I take what can be taken. Too late now. They've caught me. But Anna, the shock to her, think of that. The thoughts are too strong in this house. It's like being imprisoned. I can't change myself back. You are Tom. You were Tom, weren't you? You aren't joking with an old man. You're not really Lavinia Spaulding. I'm not anyone. I'm just myself. Wherever I am something, and now I'm something you can't help. You're not safe in the town. It's better out on the canal where no one can hurt you, pleaded the old man. That's true, the voice hesitated. But I must consider these people now. How would they feel if in the morning I was gone again? This time for good. Anyway, the mother knows what I am. She guessed, even as you did. I think they all guessed, but didn't question. You don't question Providence. If you can't have the reality, a dream is just as good. Perhaps I'm not their dead one back, but I'm something almost better to them, an ideal shaped by their minds. I have a choice of hurting them or your wife. They're a family of 5. They can stand your loss better. Please, said the voice, I'm tired. The old man's voice hardened. You got to come. I can't let Anna be hurt again. You're our son. You're my son, and you belong to us. No, please, the shadow trembled. You don't belong to this house or these people. No, don't do this to me. Tom, Tom, son, listen to me. Come back. Slip down the vines, boy. Come along. Anna's waiting. We'll give you a good home. Everything you want. He stared and stared upward, willing it to be. The shadows drifted. The vines rustled. At last, the quiet voice said, All right, Father. Tom! In the moonlight, the quick figure of a boy slid down through the vines. Lafarge put up his arms to catch them. The room lights above flashed on. A voice issued from one of the grilled windows. Who's down there? Hurry, boy. More lights, more voices. Stop! I have a gun. Vinny, are you all right? A running of feet. Together, the old man and the boy ran across the garden. A shot sounded. The bullet struck the wall as they slammed the gate. Tom, you that way. I'll go here and lead them off. Run to the canal. I'll meet you there. In 10 minutes, boy. They parted. The moon hid behind a cloud. The old man ran in darkness. And I'm here. The old woman helped him, trembling, into the boat. Where's Tom? He'll be here in a minute, panted Lafarge. They turned to watch the alleys and the sleeping town. Late strollers were still out. A policeman, a night watchman, a rocket pilot, several lonely men coming home from some nocturnal rendezvous, 4 men and women issuing from a bar laughing. Music played dimly somewhere. Why doesn't he come? Asked the old woman. He'll come. He'll come. But Lafarge was not certain. Suppose the boy had been caught again, somehow, some way, in his travel down to the landing, running through the midnight streets between the dark houses. It was a long run, even for a young boy, but he should have reached here first. And now, far away, along the moonlit avenue, a figure ran. Lafarge cried out and then silenced himself, for also far away was another sound of voices and running feet. Lights blazed on in window after window. Across the open plaza leading to the landing, the one figure ran. was not Tom. It was only a running shape, with a face like silver shining in the light of the globes clustered about the plaza. And as it rushed nearer, it became more familiar, until when it reached the landing, it was Tom. Anna flung up her hands. Lafarge hurried to cast off, but already it was too late. For out of the avenue and across the silent plaza now came one man, another, a woman, two other men, Mr. Spaulding, all running. They stopped, bewildered. They stared about, wanting to go back, because this could only be a nightmare. It was quite insane. But they came on again, hesitantly, stopping, starting. It was too late. The night, the event, was over. Lafarge twisted the mooring rope in his fingers. He was very cold and lonely. The people raised and put down their feet in the moonlight, drifting with great speed, wide-eyed, until the crowd, all 10 of them, halted at the landing. They peered wildly down into the boat. They cried out, "Don't move, Lafarge!" Spaulding had a gun. And now it was evident what had happened. Tom, flashing through the moonlit streets alone, passing people. A policeman seeing the figure dart past. The policeman pivoting, staring at the face, calling a name, giving pursuit. "You, stop!" Seeing a criminal face. All along the way, the same thing. Men here, women there. Night watchmen, rocket pilots. The swift figure meaning everything to them. All identities, all persons, all names. How many different names had been uttered in the last 5 minutes? How many different faces shaped over Tom's face? All wrong. All down the way, the pursued and the pursuing. The dream and the dreamers. The quarry and the hounds. All down the way, the sudden revealment. The flash of familiar eyes. The cry of an old name. The remembrances of other times. The crowd multiplying. Everyone leaping forward as, like an image reflected from 10,000 mirrors, 10,000 eyes, the running dream came and went. A different face to those ahead, those behind, those yet to be met, those unseen. And here they all are now at the boat, wanting the dream for their own. Just as we want him to be Tom, not Lavinia or William or Roger or any other, thought Lafarge. But it's all done now. The thing has gone too far. "Come up, all of you," Spaulding ordered them. Tom stepped up from the boat. Spaulding seized his wrist. "You're coming home with me. I know." "Wait," said the policeman. "He's my prisoner. Name's Dexter, wanted for murder." "No," a woman sobbed. "It's my husband. I guess I know my husband." Other voices objected. The crowd moved in. Mrs. Lafarge shielded Tom. "This is my son. You have no right to accuse him of anything. We're going home right now." As for Tom, he was trembling and shaking violently. He looked very sick. The crowd thickened about him, putting out their wild hands, seizing and demanding. Tom screamed. Before their eyes, he changed. He was Tom and James and a man named Switchman, another named Butterfield. He was the town mayor and the young girl Judith and the husband William and the wife Clarice. He was melting wax shaping to their minds. They shouted, they pressed forward, pleading. He screamed, threw out his hands, his face dissolving to each demand. "Tom!" cried Lafarge. "Alice!" another. "William!" They snatched his wrists, whirled him about until with one last shriek of horror he fell. He lay on the stones, melted wax cooling, his face all faces, one eye blue, the other golden, hair that was brown, red, yellow, black, one eyebrow thick, one thin, one hand large, one small. They stood over him and put their fingers to their mouths. They bent down. "He's dead," someone said at last. It began to rain. The rain fell upon the people, and they looked up at the sky. Slowly and then more quickly, they turned and walked away and then started running, scattering from the scene. In a minute, the place was desolate. Only Mr. and Mrs. Lafarge remained, looking down, hand in hand, terrified. The rain fell upon the upturned, unrecognizable face. Anna said nothing but began to cry. "Come along home, Anna. There's nothing we can do," said the old man. They climbed down into the boat and went back along the canal in the darkness. They entered their house and lit a small fire and warmed their hands. They went to bed and lay together cold and thin, listening to the rain return to the roof above them. "Listen," said Lafarge at midnight. "Did you hear something?" "Nothing. Nothing. I'll go look anyway." He fumbled across the dark room and waited by the outer door for a long time before he opened it. He pulled the door wide and looked out. Rain poured from the black sky upon the empty dooryard, into the canal, and among the blue mountains. He waited 5 minutes, and then softly, his hands wet, he shut and bolted the door. And that is the end of that story. And what do we got? We got about 7 or 8 minutes left. I wonder how long is this next. I'll read this next little bit, and then I'll still probably have time, because it's not long at all. November 2036, the Luggage Store. It was a very remote thing when the luggage store proprietor heard the news on the night radio, received all the way from Earth on a light sound beam. The proprietor felt how remote it was. There was going to be a war on Earth. He went out to peer into the sky. Yes, there it was, Earth, in the evening heavens, following the sun into the hills. The words on the radio and that green star were one and the same. "I don't believe it," said the proprietor. "It's because you're not there," said Father Peregrine, who had stopped by to pass the time of evening. "What do you mean, Father?" "It's like when I was a boy," said Father Peregrine. "We heard about wars in Asia, but we never believed them. It was too far away, and there were too many people dying. It was impossible. Even when we saw the motion pictures, we didn't believe it. Well, that's how it is now. Earth is Asia. It's so far away, it's unbelievable. It's not here. You can't touch it. You can't even see it. All you see is a green light. 2 billion people living on that light? Unbelievable. War? We don't hear the explosions." "We will," said the proprietor. "I keep thinking about all those people that were going to come to Mars this week. What was it, 100,000 or so coming up in the next month or so? What about them if the war starts? I imagine they'll turn back. They'll be needed on Earth." "Well," said the proprietor, "I'd better get my luggage dusted off. I got a feeling there'll be a rush sale here any time." "Do you think everyone now on Mars will go back to Earth if this is the big war we've all been expecting for years?" "It's a funny thing, Father, but yes, I think we'll all go back. I know we came up here to get away from things. Politics, the atom bomb, war, pressure groups, prejudice, laws, I know. But it's still home there. You wait and see. When the first bomb drops on America, the people up here will start thinking. They haven't been here long enough. A couple years is all. If they'd been here 40 years, it'd be different, but they got relatives down there and their hometowns. Me, I can't believe in Earth anymore. I can't imagine it much. But I'm old. I don't count. I might stay on here. I doubt it. Yeah, I guess you're right. They stood on the porch watching the stars. Finally, Father Peregrine pulled some money from his pocket and handed it to the proprietor. Come to think of it, you'd better give me a new valise. My old one's in pretty bad condition. And then the next story, another old favorite, is called The Off-Season, but we're not going to read that tonight. Anyway, I mentioned I would say something about the story, and specifically about my own personal response to it when I first read it when I was a kid. I found it obviously, and I'm talking about The Martian here, not either of the short pieces on either side. I obviously found it very pitiable and very upsetting. What I did not, and I had not issues with it. Not issues with it in the sense that I didn't enjoy it or didn't think it was a good story. But it always bothered me, and it bothered me more than almost anything else in the Martian Chronicles, which again I read when I was pretty young. I don't remember exactly how, somewhere between 10 and 12. But the something profound about that story that kind of stuck in my craw, as we say here in America, an old Americanism, and I didn't really get it until I was a lot older. And then one day, when I was rereading it as probably a 20-something-year-old, I finally realized, hang on, the reason that story always gets to me and the reason I feel that story is because, in a way, it feels like that character, the Martian, is me. Now, I am not taking personal responsibility in any shape or form for having anything to do with the story, because as far as I know, it was written when I was either a very small child or not even born yet. What I meant was that I had come to realize that, especially in the early part of my life, that I had always been a people pleaser. And not only that, I had been what later generations would call, or later, iterations would call, not just a people pleaser, but codependent. And without throwing a lot of jargon at you, most of you out there at least know the term now. And one of the things I realized about myself was that I was so worried about other people not having a good time in any given social situation that I would actually force myself to entertain. I would entertain people. I would do funny voices, and I would be, if you remember the early days of Robin Williams, well, it didn't feel like a coincidence to me that we shared similar names, him Robin and me Robert, and both of us Williamses, because that was very much my mode when I was a teenager and into my early 20s. I was very much somebody who, in a social situation, especially a party, I was just sort of frothing with stuff, trying to be, quick-witted and funny and doing voices and being absurd and surreal and all that kind of stuff. And as I got older, I realized that a big reason for that was that I had this kind of codependent need to make sure that there wouldn't be any awkwardness or people being embarrassed or ashamed, or, it's a whole weird thing. I won't bore you guys with it, but it's something I came to realize about myself. I still have it. I'm still, nothing upsets me more than public embarrassment of somebody other than myself. It doesn't bother me that if I get embarrassed particularly, at least not very much, but other people, it's super painful to me. And I remember that, as a kid, seeing somebody accused of doing something wrong in a situation comedy that when it wasn't their fault, I feel horrible. And it turned out that, my kids, I don't know if I trained them into this but that they wound up the same way. All this kind of stuff. And I realized, that's why The Martian was so powerful for me, was because I felt like that was me, that I had to make myself into something that other people wanted, to avoid people being upset or being hurt or whatever. I would do whatever I felt I had to do to make everybody okay. And this carried over into all kinds of things in my life, including some very bad life choices, my first marriage, all kinds of things. So I'm telling you this now just to say that it took me a long time, but I figured out why this story so registered with me when I was young without even knowing that it did, and why it took me so many years to figure it out. And even though I now understand what that is, it still feels very powerful to me, this idea of being so helpless to avoid trying to make everybody happy that you eventually just melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. That's so strong still. Anyway, enough bibbling and babbling. It is now time for me to turn it off for the night and to release all of you kind people to whatever you have to do on this Sunday. So I thank you for joining me. I will be back at 7 p.m. to read some more. We will read the next story, which, as I mentioned, is one that I'm rather fond of, which is The Off Season, because it's also a return of a character from one of the earlier stories, as you will see. So with that, I say thank you for spending time with me. I'm sorry if I've burdened you with any of my weirdness, but there you go. That's part of the package deal. Please take good care of yourselves, take good care of your friends and loved ones, spare a little energy for those around you that you don't know as well, but who might need some help also. And yeah, that'll do it. So peace and be well. And I will see some of you at 7, and I will see some of you in YouTube recordings, and I will see the rest of you next week. And yeah, that's it. So thanks. Happy New Year. See you real soon.